welcome back once again to another Battlebots review. It's the second episode of Battlebots Champions 2, the second since City Slugfest. That's a lot of twos. Let's jump into this. Now in this intro, they mentioned the huge history of Battlebots with some glimpses of some of the first Battlebots Grand Finals, including the 2015 Grand Final. Insert plug here. I mean, you can check the review for the 2015 Grand Final that I did actually very recently, on my channel. Subscribe! Anyway, after that, we of course are met as always by Chris and Kenny. Not a lot to note as they generally reiterate the format and recap what happened last episode with Shredded Bro's crazy redemption arc. Honestly, again, that episode was a lot of fun to watch. Now the tournament this time looks like it has some heavy hitters. Blip versus Black Dragon, MadCat versus Bloodsport, Malice versus Jinx, and Fusion versus Whiplash. I could go on about this one, but I already saw several robots that I'd love to see win this episode since East Slugfest. Between a possible redemption for Whiplash or Blip, Black Dragon, Bloodsport, Malice, MadCat all being crazy cool spinners, or even my thought that if Fusion has its reliability in check, that it could be a genuine contender, got me really excited to see how this would all play out. But in our first fight, we had Blip versus Black Dragon. This fight, I was definitely predicting it to go Black Dragon's way right from the offset. I love Blip, but I could see it struggling against Black Dragon and Black Dragon's famous reliability right from the offset. Still, I hope that Blip would get a good showing in this fight. Both came out with some nice looking forks, Blip with its now traditional long sturdy forks, while Black Dragon has two long hinged forks, which meant that ground clearance was going to be especially interesting and had me excited to see how things would play out. Now Blip came out of the box a little slowly at first while Black Dragon waited to spin up. The two then had a battle of forks with Blip getting the first strike in with a nice flip and then pinning them in the corner. However, after another battle of the forks, Black Dragon starts coming in with some nasty hits. The egg beater then stalls for a bit, getting me a little bit worried for them, but did come back to life as Blip soon looks a lot worse for wear as the bots quickly catches on fire. Now Blip, save some fire for Fusion. Now unfortunately, it was a sign of a bigger problem as Blip would end up losing half of its drive. I can't tell when, but it also lost a fork somewhere in the carnage. Black Dragon then attacks some more, peeling back the flipper of Blip. Black Dragon keeps going as Blip is crab walking, though somehow Blip is actually keeping up a little bit of a decent fight as it still gets a few flips in on Black Dragon, as Black Dragon would occasionally rise up the flipper. Still, the damage to Blip was building and eventually Blip would break down, getting them counted out, meaning that Black Dragon wins and would move on to the next round. Now this was a pretty good opening fight. Both robots fought hard, with Blip fighting till its dying breaths. It's just a shame to see Blip break down so quickly when in the beginning it looked like it could have been a far closer back and forth. A good fight that could have been great, it still definitely whet my appetite for the action to come. Speaking of, next up was MadCat versus Bloodsport. Okay, I knew right away that this was either going to be a huge encounter or a one-hit wonder. Two incredibly powerful robots, but Bloodsport has shown that it can struggle if tipped over, which it can do on its own, let alone against a hard-hitting vert like MadCat. MadCat, meanwhile, came out with their wedge to deflect horizontal spinner blows to allow them better durability, as well as feeding Bloodsport's weapon directly into their own vert. It's proven that a good wedge can treat Bloodsport's powerful weapon like it's nothing, as we saw in the fight with Beta. In fact, I think the Bloodsport team posted a video showing that Beta's wedge was pretty much unharmed by the end of it. Bloodsport, meanwhile, comes out with a long, powerful bar and cat ears. Yeah. But for real, it probably is a smart idea to try and hit as hard as they can in this fight. They also added a flamethrower to the self-righter, just for a visual, really. Perfect if they added a style category to judging like old school Robot Wars, but definitely just a visual thing here. The battle begins with both robots getting up to speed and landing a colossal shot. And one and done, just as I expected it would happen. Bloodsport got flipped up and over, and with a little bit of smoke, they are counted out as MadCat wave them goodbye. Again, like with the opener, I wished we got to see more, as both robots are so cool. But unfortunately, Bloodsport needs to figure out this issue for World Championship 8, as it leads to them being unfortunately too vulnerable, too much of a glass cannon really, as when they're flipped over, they are done. Meanwhile, MadCat definitely was the one I considered to be most likely to win the whole thing, so I expected and was happy to see them win. Next up was Malice versus Jinx, horizontal on horizontal here. Malice of course had their secret weapon of Ray Billings for emotional support, as he was still letting his hand heal at the time. But I just felt Malice was the favourite heading into this one. Jinx can be a very cool design with an ultra long bar for ultimate reach, but it just seemed to not reach that potential this season. Plus Malice is very potent for how small it is. The buzzer sounded and Jinx goes tail first once again, likely to stop Malice from stopping the spinner, but it didn't work as Malice came rushing in and landed some shots of its own, and just quickly tearing bits of Jinx's tyres off. Jinx soon does get the bar spinning hard and does get a massive shot on Malice, and even ended up tipping Malice upside down. And right there, I thought we were about to see a major upset, as I could see that Malice's belts were pretty much in line to potentially get sniped by Jinx's undercutter. Still, Malice would persist, taking out just a bit more tyre to cause Jinx to rest on its bar, meaning that Jinx was no longer able to move, meaning that they got counted out, giving Malice the win. Now, I really hope Jinx can get those tyres sorted for next season. When the robot was able to move, it looked like it could have put Malice in a really bad spot and turned the fight around. But those tyres were clearly their ultimate undoing. Generally, I'd say the robot itself is fairly solid, but those tyres have consistently been their downfall this season. Here's hoping that they can get back to the drawing board and figure out a way to deal with that. And then for the last fight of round 1, we got Fusion versus Whiplash. This fight could really... I knew that this fight could really go two very different ways. On one hand, Whiplash is generally one of the top contenders of Battlebots and seemed to be coming back to form towards the end of World Championship 7, much like how Shredded Bro was reaching its potential at the end of its World Championship 7 run, to then go on to win their Sin City Slugfest. So there was a potential that we could see that mirrored here, with Whiplash struggling, getting their bearings towards the end of their World Championship 7 run, only to win the Slugfest, you know? I could see that being a real possibility, even from this first matchup. But Fusion, meanwhile, is a robot that has no real perfect counter, except to rely on its lack of reliability, which, based on the spinless plow that Whiplash is going with, you could tell Whiplash was relying on that if they didn't already spell it out for you, with them explaining that they hope to flip Fusion over to make that vert spinner pretty much useless, and then all they would have to do is just suffocate that horizontal spinner. Now the battle begins with Whiplash rushing into them like a speeding bullet. They quickly flip Fusion over, and Fusion ends up catching on fire pretty much instantly. If Fusion versus Witch Doctor is Fusion at its best, then this fight is Fusion at its worst, as Fusion quickly throws them into the corner where they are counted out. Now I'm sorry, I think I blinked. The fact that leading up to this, I was thinking of all the different ways this could go. Just for Whiplash to come and make a quick mockery of Fusion was honestly crazy to watch. Okay, sure, I could complain that we could have seen more, like I said in the first two parts of this episode, but I think the spectacle that Whiplash gave more than balances that out. You absolutely should check this fight out, as it's so quick and such a systematic dissection of a robot that has given some top contenders a real hard time. Reese made a joke about living in a woodshed or something in the aftermath of the match, and all I could think about was, with your robot, I wouldn't want you near anything wooden. I've heard some people wondering if Fusion will make it back for World Championship 8, and I honestly don't know based on its performance, but I do think that Fusion shows a great deal of potential. The vert horizontal combination is clearly a lot to try and juggle, but if it were to work, then it really does seem like a good counter for some designs. Like I mentioned before, you try to get as low as possible, then, the horizontal could rip the wedgeless off. If you try to go with durability, then typically the vert would pose a problem. It's an interesting design, but clearly it's got a lot of issues it needs sorting out if they hope to make it for World Championship 8. But given it's the YRG team, there's a real potential that Reese will either come back with an improved fusion or just an all-new design altogether. Now with that, we're on to the second round of the Sin City Slugfest. First up was Black Dragon vs MadCat, and this was an exciting one. An extremely durable spinner versus a very powerful spinner. This was an unstoppable force meeting an immovable object. Now MadCat came out with two nice looking wedgelets for this fight to help them with ground clearance in this one, while Black Dragon once again came out with those hinged forks. Now the match begins and both robots race into each other, with MadCat getting the upper hand, but Black Dragon does rebound and goes in for another clash, but MadCat again gets the upper hand, ripping off a fork and sending Black Dragon into the pulverizer. Black Dragon in return then takes out the mini-bot and returns a shot to MadCat and manages to disable the weapon. Still, the kitty has 9 lives and rams Black Dragon into a wall. Sure, they've got no weapon left, but they've still got a pretty powerful drive system. And Black Dragon, while still landing some shots, gets shoved into the screws. The mini-bot proves to still be alive, though Black Dragon does more damage to it before going back to damaging MadCat. The fight is an incredibly tense back and forth as MadCat keeps shoving Black Dragon about, and Black Dragon does some major damage. At one point, MadCat actually ends up scooping up their mini-bot and accidentally giving it to Black Dragon. And the mini-bot ends up actually being almost some unintentional ablative armor, where it just gets absolutely wrecked, but saves MadCat from taking additional damage. Soon though, bits and pieces of MadCat begin littering the box as their wedgelets are absolutely torn to shreds, with their drive beginning to buckle, but shockingly, their spinner coming back to life. The match goes the distance and is thrown to the judges, with that last bit from MadCat definitely throwing a little bit of a question mark in the end. Still, I absolutely agree with the judges who give it to Black Dragon. But saying that, MadCat gave such a great performance. The driving of Calvin was truly exceptional with the odds stacked against them. This definitely has to be a contender for match of the night in my opinion. Both robots gave it their all and absolutely proved themselves in my opinion. After that we got Malice versus Whiplash. Another potentially fun fight and one I definitely could see Whiplash continuing its major redemption here. But I knew Malice was not going to make this easy, as I've seen with those forks they can get under and do some major damage to robots in a way I'd never expected from a horizontal. Whiplash meanwhile once again comes out with the spinnerless plow to endure the damage as best as they can and try to gain control, much like they did in the fusion fight. Also, they mentioned Manta. Yeah, one of the members of the Malice team, David, actually is the person who's been building Manta, who you might have heard is a very promising drum spinner that is likely to enter World Championship 8. It was meant to be entering World Championship 7, but did get denied that time around. It'll be interesting to see how that turns out, but for now, we're going to get into this fight. Now the green light is on, and Whiplash once again rushes over and quickly takes control, absorbing a shot which causes Malice to pop up in the air, where they do a brief pin before breaking away and then shoving Malice into the pulverizer, turning them around and nearly sending them into the screws. Still Malice isn't out and begins landing some nasty shots. Whiplash then uses the lifter to regain control, soon sending Malice back into the screws before soon flipping them over, where Malice's forks are now dangling uselessly, meaning Malice has a lot less to work with, but Whiplash also seems slightly more sluggish, which they would explain was the drive getting damaged from the shots from Malice. Still, with that pinpoint precision we expect from the team, they end up pushing Malice into the screws and position Malice perfectly where the wheels don't touch the ground, and Malice is counted out. Another awesome fight. Malice only got brief moments in, but their offense is still pretty potent. Like, sure, it's not Tombstone, despite having Ray Billings there, but Malice definitely shouldn't be underestimated. That thing can do some nasty damage to its opponents. But Whiplash, putting all their weight into the fence, is so good at just enduring all of it, and with that immaculate driving that made me such a fan of them, they are clearly back in a major way. This is why I adore Whiplash. When they are like this, they are such an incredible control bot, and they feel almost perfect for the Battlebots format. They're a robot that can adapt to almost any situation. Now, it's on to the final. Black Dragon versus Whiplash. Now, this is a fight I'm happy to see end either way, as I enjoy both of these robots, but I definitely saw Whiplash as the favourite with their reach and, of course, their incredible driving. Still, again, Black Dragon is not a robot you can underestimate, as it refuses to die. Black Dragon comes out with an all-new front to have 4 forks on the front, almost a Bite Force style setup to aid them in reach and ground clearance. Meanwhile, Whiplash now has their spinner on, and of course, 2 long forks to aid them in ground clearance. Meaning this fight had me really excited, as both teams were absolutely going to give it their all. Now Whiplash rushes over in the beginning as the two go spinner to spinner, but apart from some sparks, neither get a definitive upper hand in the beginning. Though on the second clash, Black Dragon ends up on top with some nice shots in. Still, Whiplash keeps the pressure on, getting some nice digs in, but then Black Dragon returns the favour, chewing away at the front of Whiplash. Still, Whiplash ends up ripping off the forks on one side of Black Dragon and then flipping them over. With this, Black Dragon is vulnerable and at first begins to panic, which allows Whiplash to take advantage, though once Black Dragon is back upright, it continues to get into a crazy tussle with them. Whiplash tries using the lifter and Black Dragon retorts by repeatedly popping Whiplash up before getting under and landing more shots on the underside before ramming them into the wall. With that, Whiplash has clearly lost one half of their drive. Still, just as it looked like it might be that Black Dragon might just pull away, their weapon dies. With that, the match goes to 3 minutes and to the judges. And I was on the edge of my seat as I couldn't tell exactly how they judged the match. I mean, Whiplash lost half its drive and Black Dragon lost their weapon. Those are some critical forms of damage that could really swing the fight either way, and both robots gave it their all in this fight. The judges deliberated, and they gave the fight to Whiplash. Though Black Dragon did actually end up appealing the decision, which, given how crazy the fight was, I totally understood wanting to. But in the end, the decision stood with Whiplash moving on to the Golden Bolt tournament. Now, what a hell of a final match. I absolutely agree with the judges giving it to Whiplash, as overall they were getting more control in, and in the end some major damage was done to Black Dragon. But it was so close that even Matt Vasquez didn't expect to win. Both teams put on an extremely good performance, and I loved it. This is why I like these two robots. With an exceptionally durable spinner like Black Dragon, sure, it's not going to get the hits of a robot like Riptide, but they get some good damage in, and they can last the full 3 minutes, bringing an exceptional fight to their opponents. And of course, Whiplash, with that exceptional driving, just a generally great robot that can take control, they're extremely aggressive, and when they have that spinner, they too can get some damage points in. It's why I say Whiplash is almost perfect for the Battlebots format. Now, overall, this was another great episode and another amazing redemption, as Whiplash reminds everyone why it's a top contender in Battlebots. From the incredible driving of Matt and Calvin, to the capability of Malice, to Black Dragon's always reliable performance, this was absolutely incredible and extremely competitive. I highly recommend checking out this episode if you can, and tuning into next week's episode to watch the race to the Golden Bolt continue to unravel. And I've seen that tournament, and I gotta tell you, I was shocked to see the tournament. I'm definitely curious to see how this is all going to unfold, and you'll get to hear me talk about that hopefully on time, Saturday. It looks like this video is probably going to be slightly late, but roughly on Saturday, I'll be posting my review for episode 3. All being well, I shouldn't make promises. But thank you all so much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and be sure to hit that notification bell to be notified of future videos on the channel. Comment down below what you thought of this episode, and be sure to share this video around to get more eyes on the channel. I don't know if I said that already. Also, we have memberships, which include, exclusive videos, including like exclusive reviews. There's going to be another one coming soon, looking at some of the bonus fights that didn't make it to TV, as well as other stuff. The 2015 season, I reviewed some of those highlight fights and some unaired fights, and there's more to come. And of course, the warm feeling of supporting me on my journey. Now, I want to thank you all once again for checking the video, and I'll see you all next time. Bye, guys!